Hey y'all, I'm in the garden this morning doing some seed starting, and I figured I would just hop on and talk you guys through my process a little bit. So I've done a seed starting video before, and I've got these trays full of moisture control potting soil or potting mix, excuse me. And I'm just gonna go through and fill these up with some flower seeds for spring. One thing that I've been thinking about is scaling up as I try to make the transition from just growing for enjoyment in the garden to growing enough to sell and attend markets with. And so one thing that I kind of have to consider is my succession planting and also the amount that I'm planting during each succession. And I kind of found myself just still like in a gardener mindset of dropping in like 10, 15 seeds here or there. And I'm not really sure yet how the spacing is going to pan out, but I think that it makes more sense to have too many plants versus having not enough. So what I've done is I've ordered more seeds, and this time I ordered in a greater quantity. So I'm dealing with packs of seeds that have 1/4 of an ounce, 500 to 50 versus seed packs that might have 20 or 50 seeds. And I'm wanting to plant in groups of 50 or 100 to 200 versus groups of like 10 to 20. So that's what I'm just gonna go through and do right now. I've got these 4 seed starting trays, and I'm just gonna pop about 3 or 4 seeds in each of these cells. Another thing that I was doing that I'm gonna try to shift away from a bit is taking one of these flats and sowing like a row of snapdragons, a row of calendula, a row of poppies, and I'm gonna break this up into larger groups so that I have more plants of the same variety at once. So most of these are only gonna be planted with 2 varieties, and then I think that I'm gonna have one tray that will have 3 or 4 varieties. So that would mean 5, 10, 15, 20. I'll have anywhere from 15 to 20 blocks of a particular plant that I'm planting, and in that I'll still pop 3 or 4 seeds. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. The first tray that I'm gonna do is this one right here. I've got some labels that I'm recycling, and I'm gonna be starting some feverfew and some Icelandic poppies. You can read the back of your seed packets to see the best method for seed starting, and both of these it's recommended to transplant out. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my labels and then get started placing my seeds. I've got this seed starting tray right here. I'm just splitting it in the half as far as what I'm planting. So I'm going to have poppies from this row going back, and then from this row coming back towards me, I'm going to have feverfew. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I've switched sides of the table really quickly just for the sake of light, and so I don't have a huge shadow over my tray. But I'm gonna start with my feverfew. That's going to be going over here. So I've got my seeds, and these are really tiny, almost similar to chamomile seeds, and they do need light to germinate. And so I'm just going to be sprinkling them right on the top. So feverfew was one that I couldn't get in a very large quantity. But what I'm gonna do is just plant what I can. So I still have a little bit of seed in here. I'm not sure if you can see that on the bottom corner. And some people like to use a toothpick for this, but I'm just going to drop these in. They're not so small that I can't do 3 or 4 at a time. So right now I'm trying to do about 3 at a time in each cell. I've had pretty good germination with feverfew so far. I was a bit worried initially because this seed is just so tiny, but so far so good. I will show you all some of the transplants that I have outside of the greenhouse for the time being, and I've actually already started transplanting out some calendula and some bachelor button, just because those two did really well during the really low cold snap that we had. And so I figured it's not 15 degrees with a freezing ground here often, and if I can go ahead and move something out, then that would free up space for something else. Uh-oh. My seed packs are getting wet. So this pack only had 50 seeds in it. It was out of stock in the larger quantities.
These have seeds.
You have seeds too, Sully?
Yeah.
Sully's here with me, resting his body. He had a little accident yesterday and stepped on a nail. So he's unable to sort of get around like he typically would be. But we cleaned it out really well. We added some essential oils. So hopefully he'll be back in business in a couple days. A couple more in the seed pack. And I may have an empty row down here on the end, just because I didn't have that many seeds. So let's add this right here. And what I can do, since I didn't have enough seed to finish this last row right here, I'll just add another label right here and plug something in, plug something else in right here. So this pack is empty. That was my feverfew. I'm going to grab this and just stick that here to mark the space. That it'll just remind me that this is still empty. All right, so this seed pack has 500 seeds in it, and this should be more than enough to sow a few in each of these cells. These are Icelandic poppies. I used to have poppies at the old house. So I'll see how this goes. I'm not banking on every variety that I've started producing enough to sell, but it's also a lesson in what I'm able to grow here under these conditions. So next year I know, hey, you know, stock didn't grow so well, pick something else, and I won't waste the space on things that don't grow well. But if I can experiment with a couple of different things, it just gives me a few more options as to what I can grow and offer. So I've grown poppies before. I have not grown feverfew before. So that's a new one for me here and in growing in general. So that's it for the poppies. Still have seeds in here, and I'm just gonna pop it right back into this seed pack. Stock is one that gets planted in succession because it is a one cut flower. So I think what I'm going to do is plant a succession of stock right here in this single row. Single row, Sully, yes. Can you wait just a moment? And then maybe I can hold you?
No.
You wanted to see yourself in the camera, but the camera is on the plants. All right, so this is my stock seed. Doing 3 or 4 in each of these. That was 4. Nope. Stock needs to be planted every week depending on what you're going to be doing for it as far as succession planting. So I'm going to get a marker and go ahead and redo that label. All right, so I found my marker and I'm just going to go ahead and write what's in this line. So we've got stalk right there, stalk, feverfew, poppies, all surface sown. This soil has already been wet, so this tray right here is done. The next seeds I'm gonna start in my next flat right here, Delphinium and Bupleurum. Both of these I've had success with if I cover them with a little bit of soil. So I'm going to sort of make a little hole for these seeds and then make sure I get some of this potting mix on top of them. Alrighty, so that's it for my second set of seed starting trays. And we'll move on to the next. So for my next flat, I'm gonna be sowing some snapdragons and some cress. And again, I've got cut flower, and then I've got some foliage for filler. So I'm gonna reuse my popsicle stick labels. And just sort of, I'll turn it this way so you guys can see. So from here over, I'm gonna sow snaps. From here over, I'm gonna sow cress. Let me mark out my old stuff. So one thing I learned about snaps is that they're grouped based on their bloom time. So some snapdragons require short days and cooler temps, while others require longer days and warmer temperatures. So if you are looking to grow snapdragons, just check to see if you have the appropriate group for the season and the time of year. So snapdragon seeds are extremely tiny. I'm not going to hold these up because it's just a little bit breezy here, and these would probably just get blown off of my hand. Similar to something like the feverfew or chamomile. And with these, I'm just going to surface sow them as well. Put this back just to be on the safe side. Double check this. All right, so I'm going with my snaps. I've had pretty good success with most of my snapdragons germinating so far, so that's encouraging. I will be trying a all season or a group 3-4 snapdragon as the weather warms up. This is a group 1 early season snapdragon that I'm sowing today. And snaps, you should be able to get at least a couple of cuts off of. So that's why I am dedicating a few more flats to the snapdragon. And so far I've just been making sure that the surface of this seed starting mix does not dry out, because these seeds are so tiny that once they germinate, you don't want them to get dry, and that really just depends on the surface of these seed starting cells not drying out. Oh, I can see a couple there. So ideally I would be bottom watering these. I'm not sure how many bottom water trays I have available, and if you aren't able to bottom water, I would just suggest using a really fine mister, or like what is it, a spray bottle or a mist setting on a water hose should do just fine to keep the top of these from drying out. So snapdragons I have grown before. They aren't entirely new to me. I grew snapdragons at the old house in our garden, and I grew just a handful of snapdragons in the garden here last year. Persian cress is one that is new to me, but I've had pretty good success just surface sowing. It seems to germinate fairly well. So these seeds are big enough that you can see where they fall, and so I'm just going to do 3 or 4 in each cell. Let's see, I've got 2 more. This struck me as sort of a fun filler, so I'm hoping it does well. I think I tried to grow it last year and I didn't have success with it. I'm not sure if it germinated or if I didn't get it out of the greenhouse in time. I sort of probably figured it wasn't a priority since my focus was on growing food. Counting these, I can see that I'm dropping about 4 or 5 in each cell. And I'm not going to cover either one of these with potting mix. So let's see, this is my cress. It doesn't say that light aids in germination on the back of my seed pack, but I've had good germination so far just surface sowing it. And the snapdragons are so tiny, I'm pretty sure the packet does say that light aids in germination. Yes, light is required for germination, but a fine layer of vermiculite covering the seeds will help maintain moisture levels and prevent algae growth. So you can sprinkle a little bit over your snaps if you'd like. I've done well so far just leaving mine, so that's what I'm gonna do. And that is the third tray. We've got one more to go. All right, so for my last two in this planting, I've got emerald, amaranth, and yarrow, both sort of fillers in the bouquets. So I'm gonna make my labels. Let's see. And I will move the camera a little closer just so you guys can see the surface of this tray. I'm gonna do the same thing. Yarrow's going from here over, and then this is, now it's actually a little early, I think, to be starting my amaranth, but I would like to have this green color in the spring bouquets. I don't believe amaranth is frost hardy at all, so I'm pushing the envelope a little bit here, starting this now. But I did order extra seed just in case this didn't go well and they end up dying or freezing. And actually this pack, this is 1/4 of an ounce, so that's a lot of seed. I could probably start 2 or 3 trays, 3 or 4 trays with the amount of seed that I have in this pack. So I'm willing to experiment a little and just see if I can get this going a little early to have it in some spring bouquets, just for that nice pop of green color, which is really lively, I think. So here's this. Amaranth is gonna go from this marker over. Let's see if I can get you guys closer as I sow this last flat of seeds. All right, so I'm gonna start with my yarrow. And this is a cut and come again filler. So pretty sure I've heard that, you know, once you have yarrow, you always have yarrow, but we'll see. I'm just gonna sow a couple of these per cell tray because I can cut this and it's gonna come back again. In some aspects, it's okay if I don't have as many plants, right? So I might want more plants of something that I'm only gonna get one cut out of. But what I also have to take into account is that it takes time, you know, for the plant to develop to get those second cuts. So it's kind of tricky because you don't know. I don't know yet. I've never done this. So it's all sort of just an experiment at this point. All right, these are really tiny. I'm gonna surface sow them. I don't know if you can see those without them getting blown away, but that's my yarrow seed. You could probably hardly see these seeds being dropped onto the surface of the soil. This seed pack, I believe, came with at least 100. Let me get a couple more. Let's see. So a little bit left in this peck right here. If I need to come back and sow another succession, I can do that. Let's see. I lost my spot. A couple more, and then that'll be it for the yarrow. All right, so there's not really enough left in the seed pack for me to save, 6 seeds. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this in, sown. And this will be my second succession of yarrow. So should carry us through the spring. And if we need more, we can get some more. Says this is a perennial in zones 2 through 9, and we are zone 8B. So yeah, if these plants do well, may not have to get any more. All right, and lastly, I'm gonna do this emerald amaranth. Still got, I don't sift my soil, you guys, or my potting mix. I pick out what I see, but yeah, it hasn't been worth it to me to dedicate time and energy to that so far. All right, so this is 1/4 of an ounce of seed, which is plenty. And this is what that amaranth seed looks like. I'm just gonna take a pinch and sprinkle it right on top. Again, this is a lot of plants being started, but with us not knowing what the demand will be like, I'd rather have too many than not enough. And I think it's also worth considering that all of your plants may not survive your transplant process. So again, it's helpful to have more than what you need, more than what you think you'll need. All right, and I'm actually going to put the rest of this back in the seed pack. Sure, I dropped some here or there. Alrighty guys, that's it for my seed starting today. So I will move these into the greenhouse and make sure that they stay nice and moist on top. Okay, now that seed starting's done, let me show you guys what some of our first succession of seedlings look like so far. So here are some of my seedlings from the first succession of seeds that I started back in November and early December. I've got some feverfew, some stock, some craspedia, what else? Forget-me-nots in here. These are the largest plants that I have moved out right here so far. And I have some other seedlings out here just sort of hardening off. Those empty cells that you see are things that I've already transplanted out into the garden. All right, so the garden is a bit of a work zone right now. I've been working on making some stakes out of scrap wood from the house build. We've got bricks to weigh down our row cover, so there's a little bit of everything going on out here right now. But right here up front, what you see is our bachelor button seedlings. I don't see a whole ton of germination on this bed where I put poppies right here in the middle. which is why I'm trying transplanting them out. The seeds are extremely tiny, similar to Snapdragon. So we'll see if we can get some transplants going. And then over there by the frost fabric, there are a handful of Bells of Ireland. Those were started prior to me deciding to focus on flowers and growing for market. So there's not enough to sell, but I can gain experience and, figure out if bells are something that I may be able to work with in the future. Okay, over here is the other in-ground bed. I've transplanted out some calendula right here in the front, and in the middle, I've transplanted out some Rudbeckia starts. And my reasoning behind transplanting these things out already, I think I said this, but during the 15-degree Arctic blast that we had, a month or so ago, these plants did really well for the most part. So I went ahead and put these seedlings out so that they can get established. I'm not worried about 32 degree nights when these other plants fared well at 15 with the ground being frozen for almost a week. So my Rudbeckia is coming out as I plant it, my calendula is coming out as I plant it, and my bachelor button will be coming out as it is planted. All right, here's just a snapshot of what's going on in the greenhouse right now. There are more seedlings all over the place. I've got seedlings on top of my citrus pots. Over here on this rack, we've got more seedlings. Our citrus, let me see. Our citrus is loving it in here. It's starting to green up. It's actually got little buds on it now. Let's see if we can. So it's going to be flowering for new fruit. This is our, what is this? That's a Harvey lemon. So that's got buds on it. This Hamlin orange over here that was looking really rough, we had a couple of fruit on it. It's actually got new little buds coming in for more flowers, which means fruit, hopefully next winter. So the citrus is doing really well in here. Our ranunculus, 2 out of the 3 containers seem to be doing really well. Again, this is not enough for me to have a steady succession for selling, but I could add these in as focal flowers or use them for photo purposes, and it's all just going into my little bank of knowledge. So those corms will continue to multiply, and eventually I could have enough for selling. I could add to this next year, we'll see. This first container right here, I think these corums rotted or rotting or something. These don't look as hot as the others, and it may just be because the soil's too moist, but I'm just gonna sort of set it and forget it, and they could pop up come spring, so we'll see. But the 2 in the back are looking really nice right now. Alrighty, in my seed starting trays that are in the greenhouse, I've got some sweet pea, some dill, some straw flower. I heard sweet pea does not like to be transplanted, or it can be finicky about transplanting out. So that is a little bit of an experiment. We'll see how that goes. But I actually had some sweet pea seed from last year that I never used. So it's not a must-have. We'll just see what happens. Over here, I've got some chamomile, some craspedia, which that is probably the 2nd or 3rd little succession. Got some forget-me-not and more Rudbeckia. I left this flat in the back outside. I went to the store and we had like this crazy storm. So I know that this right here is cress, just because I'm trying to learn these seedlings, but I haven't had germination on anything else yet, and I'm not sure that I will. So we'll see what happens. I moved it inside, put it on a heat mat, and I'm kind of just hoping for the best as far as that goes. And our flat in the front, the last thing we have going is a couple of delphinium that are coming up right there. And I started some gomphrena. I'm not seeing very good germination on this. Kind of just, I'll keep an eye on it. I might need to wait until it's warmer out for the gomphrena. I think I talked in my video a while ago about our dahlia tubers being in the ground. Some of them did freeze. I think some of them actually made it out just fine. So I don't know. I think I'm just gonna leave what I have in there. I've kind of pulled some here and there to see what the tubers look like, and some of them were visibly frozen. I don't want to pull them all out because I think that I might get some flowers off of them. But the perks of, you know, some of them freezing, me pulling out some of our cabbages and broccoli that were beyond repair for our, you know, time constraints with the flowers. The bright side of all of that is that we have a blank slate and a new canvas to create on, and we get to be more specific and intentional about the things that we're putting in and the things that we want to grow and harvest. We get to be a little bit more specific about our color choices and our quantities and our placement. And so that's why I am really excited about this season right now, because it's allowing me to be a little bit more intentional. So we did lose some things to the frost, but there's time, we have the seed, we have the space. So we are really just staying busy, getting the garden prepared for blooms in spring, and hopeful that these blooms come and they're beautiful. It's a little bit nerve-wracking not knowing if they will bloom, not knowing if they'll germinate, not knowing if they will sell. So we'll see. But we're super excited about this process, and we are just going to take you guys along with us so you can see how it pans out. That is it for this video. We will see you guys soon. Bye.